Hello, hello, hello everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time it may be where you are watching this from. I just want to say thank you so much for joining me in this virtual space today so we can continue our learning journey. I want to ask a couple questions before we get started. First of all, drop a heart in the comments if you are really excited to learn something new today or maybe to refresh some thoughts you already had. Just drop me a little heart there. I love that. I'm seeing lots of hearts, so lots of people are really excited today to learn some new things. Another question for you, drop me a thumbs up in the comments box if you love learning about blonding. I am a blondorexic. I love blonding, so I'm gonna give all of the thumbs up for that. Awesome, see lots of thumbs up there. Well, you are all in the right space then. So a little bit about myself before we begin. My name is Eric Matthew. I am currently coming from you in my kitchen here in Denton, Texas to talk a little bit about blonding today, but we'll get more on that in a second. My background, I grew up in the salon with my mother who was a stylist and an instructor as well. I think one of the most beautiful things about being in this industry is our ability to change people's lives and make them feel so much better about themselves, and I think that that's a huge superpower that we have. But besides that, I think education is really where that power comes from, because it's with learning new techniques or making sure that you're on top of education, or maybe just reminding yourself of things that we may have forgotten over time are what's going to keep you successful behind the chair. So that is why I love to do what I do here. My name is Eric Matthew, like I said, and I am from Denton, Texas. I have been a stylist for quite a while. I work behind the chair a few days a week, just like the rest of you. So I think it's important for us to be on the same level so that we can all have a really good time today and make sure that everyone's getting what they need out of this. So what I have for you today is a few blonding tips. We're gonna take about 10 minutes here today just to go over some of my favorite things about blonding and just some things that I find out in the field are a little bit more difficult or maybe a challenge for some of our stylists. So give me a hands up if you're ready to get started. All right, perfect. So a few things real quick. I just want to lay down the code of the classroom. I know this is a little bit different because we're virtual. I'm coming to you over the internet and not necessarily in face, so it's our virtual classroom. So just a few things. Our agenda today, like I said, it's going to be about 10 minutes. We're going to be discussing a few blonding tips. I'm a science nerd, so we're going to get really in depth into the science because that's my favorite parts. The time for this, like I said, is going to be about 10 minutes. We're just going to have some fun, drop a few bombs of knowledge on here, maybe take some questions later if we have the time. Also, I would love if your mics are muted so that way I'm not getting any sound feedback. And if you have any issues hearing me, please let me know in the comments and so I can get that fixed for you as well. I want to make sure you're getting the best out of this. Also, questions. I love questions. However, I'm here by myself, so I can't see if you're raising your arm. So what I would like you to do is any questions that you have, please just type them in the comment box, and if I can't see them now, I will make sure that I try and answer as many as possible later. Does that sound good? All right, so let's get started on a few things, right? Oh, and always, we gotta have fun, right? If you're not having fun, are you really learning? So first thing I wanna talk about is the chemistry of lightning. I love blonding because it leads us to a lot of different services. Also, it gives us money, which nobody ever said I didn't like money. But what I really love about blonding, is that we have the ability to, bleach and tone someone to give them the right tone that they're looking for. Maybe they want to be a platinum or an icy or just a really beautiful beach blonde, or maybe we're doing vivids. So because blonding is a piece of all of these, I think it's important to really understand the chemistry of lightning so that you understand better what's happening. Right? I'm a firm believer that once we understand fully what the chemicals do that we use on our guests, then we have the power to harness them and really just, the sky's the limit at that point. Right? We're able to create whatever we need to for our clients, within reason, obviously. All right, so let's talk about what happens. So we have a hair strand, right? I'm not an artist, I'm a hair artist, so forgive me. Hopefully this looks like hair to you, right? So this is our hair starting out right here. Now, when we are talking about lightening hair, we're mixing two chemicals together. We're usually mixing a lightening agent or a developer. Now, one thing I want to point out real quick is that you hear me call it lightening powder, right? The one thing that I never say in front of my clients, and I've made it a habit not to say in front of other stylists, is bleach. I find the word to be a little caustic, and it's the difference between a $5 word and a $50 word. bleach being the $5 word. And so I just want to make sure that we're as professional as possible whenever we're speaking to our clients during our consultations, because that's ultimately what sets us apart from the social media hairstylists, and I'll just leave that at that. All right, so we mix up our lightener and our developer, which creates a chemical reaction, right? This chemical reaction is going to affect this hair strand by swelling the cuticle. Also notice some languages, some words that I use there. I use the word swelling. A lot of people like to say it opens the cuticle. The last time I checked, the cuticle was not a door, so we can't open it and close it, but we can swell it and contract it, right? And what that really has to do with, again, is that pH scale, right? We know that the pH scale is involved in everything that we do with hair color. So we know that because lightener is much, much higher on the pH scale, and anything over 7 is alkaline and it's going to swell the cuticle. So this is what we get, our before and our after, right? Once the lightener and the developer are placed on there, the chemical reaction takes place, it then swells the cuticle and it's gonna give us access to the cortex. Now this is most important because all of the characteristics of our hair lie within the cortex, right? So we need to be able to access the cortex via our chemical reaction to go in there and start the process of decolorizing. So, and like I said, if I'm going too fast or you need me to repeat anything, please just write it in the comments and I will get back to it later. I promise you, I promise you. All right, so after we have applied the lightener, the chemical reaction takes place. It then swells the cuticle and lets the lightener inside, right? Then what, right? So now what we're dealing with at this point is we're dealing with the eumelanin and the pheomelanin that are present inside of the hair strands. Now I know that probably takes a lot of people back to beauty school, but it's really important to understand what those do and how they pertain to lightening. So one of the first things that I want to talk about is eumelanin. Eumelanin is going to be your dark granules that are responsible for the color of the hair that's much, much darker, right? It also reacts to lightener really, really well, so it lifts through all stages of lightening, and it's going to help to give you a nice, even control because, like I said, eumelanin loves lightener, right? It loves being decolorized. It will go through all of the stages and you will not find as much resistance as you will with pheomelanin. Now pheomelanin is the red granules that we find in hair, and these do not get along with lightener. It's like the cousins at the party that don't get along. They can't sit next to each other, or they can, but there may be a problem, right? The problem here is that pheomelanin doesn't react to lightener as well. So a lot of times when we're lightening our redheaded clients, our true natural redheaded clients, we end up getting stuck in a gold stage, right? Low and slow is gonna be your best bet there, always, right? Because it's breaking through all of that pheomelanin pigment. Now, if you notice, I have a little drawing here, and I love this drawing because it really helps us understand how we see color in the hair, and I'm a nerd, so I thought this was fantastic. So we have eumelanin down in our lower level, so we'll consider this a level 1, right? That eumelanin is the black granules that are so tightly packed inside that hair strand that light can't shine through, and we see it as black. I think that's really cool. As we move up the lightness scale, right, we get to maybe our level 6. This isn't an exact, right? But this right here, if you notice, it's now got a combination of these two. As we move up the lightness scale, we begin to get a combination of the two, but it also becomes less densely packed, right? So as we're getting higher up, we're also getting lighter. So you can see here, there's a few dots of black and red, our pheomelanin, our eumelanin, that are creating a lighter level. We have our natural redhead here, who is going to be all pheomelanin, so she's going to have some issues lifting, right? We may have to take it low and slow for her. What I find really, really interesting, though, is our natural blondes. Why we're seeing that beautiful blonde yellow color is because these two granules are so sparsely present inside of the hair strand at that level that we're actually seeing the yellow from keratin, which I think is really cool because the hair is made out of keratin, and that's what's actually giving blonde that really beautiful, like buttery blonde color. Right? So again, understanding that chemical reaction opens the cuticle, then lets the lightener go in, and it starts to degrade this melanin so that we can begin to lift, right? Because as we get lighter in these pigments, we're able to get to a lighter level, right? So now what, right? So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the underlying pigment that you find here after you've lifted the client. So we've placed the lightener on the hair strands, right? It has exposed the cortex, it goes in, it begins to degrade the melanin, and then we begin to lift up into what we know as our natural underlying pigment. I'm gonna give you just a second to take a look at this, and I'll be right back. All right, so we have a chance to take a look at this. So I think one of the biggest things that we have to think about whenever we're using blonding, and right, we have to fight that underlying pigment, is we need to understand what it's going to take to get there, right? So what I've done is I've written down, and this is all matrix, obviously. Hello, right? I've written down levels 1 through 11, what we name them at matrix, and what we consider their underlying pigment to be. So what I want to do real quick is just go through here with these markers and pretend this is color, and we're going to just do a little bit of neutralization, okay? So if we have black, we have dark red, brown, that's a lot of red. We know from our color wheel that green is going to cancel out red or neutralize it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put 2 green dots. Now you may be like, why are you putting 2 green dots? I'm also going to do the same thing on a level 2. What these 2 green dots represent for me are double pigmented. I may need extra green at this level to really neutralize these tones. So I want to keep that in mind, right? Again, here we are with red, brown. I think we could probably get away with just, then we have red, right? But now here we start to get into red, orange, right? So we know that now we have 2 different colors there, so we really have to keep in mind what it is we're going to be doing and what we're going to use to neutralize that. So we already know red, we've seen this, so red is going to get rid of, or red is going to be neutralized, excuse me, by green, right? But we also need that orange to be neutralized, so we know that blue will neutralize that, right? So now we're working here with a green and a blue, trying to marry those two, right? So green and blue are going to help us take this out. Now as we're moving up the scale, right? Now we now look that we're at dark orange. To me, anytime I see the word dark, I start to think I might need more than just one pigment to do this. So again, I'm going to come through here and I'm going to do a double pigmented blue. Now this could be our ash series, right? These could be our AGs, right? Light orange, it's just light. I don't really need as much, right? Because it's not dark. So I'm maybe going to come through here with just one blue, right? Now, as we start to get higher up there, right, now we're out of the red, then we move to the orange, now we're working in here with gold, right? So 2 things need to happen, right? Gold is a combination of orange and yellow, right? So when I come through here to neutralize this, I'm going to want to use some blue, and then I'm also going to want to use some violet as well. Hopefully you can see this little violet dot. Again, pale yellow, or yellow, excuse me, right? You're going to need your violet again, pale yellow, violet again, and violet again. Now, one thing that I think is important to talk about here is just because we've used this doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to make this cool, right? All we've done here is neutralize it, right? If we want to go cool, we have to take a second step, and we have to really start to look at what we're going to use to tone and where we're going to go with that. So I have one more little chart for you. Hopefully everyone's got this. I can post a picture of this later if this is something that you really, really enjoy, or maybe it really, really helps you out to look at it this way. We're all different learners, so different things are going to help different people. So last but not least, I want to give you this little chart that, I'll be honest, I didn't have it committed to memory, and it made my life harder. And ever since I've committed this chart to memory, it has made everything in my life, especially as a colorist, I say everything in my life behind the chair as the colorist, much, much easier. So I just want to go over this toning chart right quick, just to talk about a couple things, right? So we all know that all hair lifts warm, right? That's the underlying pigment that we're dealing with depending on what level that we're at. So we have to make sure that we know what level we are here so we know what toner to pick. I always tell everyone, when you're doing blonde, you must towel dry it or at least do a little bit of a blast dry so you can really see what level underlying pigment you're at. Remember, wet hair lies. So if you're looking at, let's say, a 7, or it looks like a 7 because it's wet, and then you tone it wrong because if you dried it, it was actually maybe an 8. So it's going to be important to take your client out of the bowl, back to your chair, do some towel drying or maybe some rough blast drying so you can really gather what actual level of underlying pigment you're at. Okay, that's going to be really, really important. The next thing you have to decide is what tone do you want to go for? What is your result? And that's what I love this chart for. So we know that everything is going to lift warm, right? If hair lifts cool, please call me. I would love to see that, right? Now, if my hair lifted warm and I added a warm tone to it, and we can think of some warm tones, maybe like a CG or an RR or an RB, RB, all of those are more on the warm side. What that's going to actually give us is a warm result, right? Because we didn't neutralize here. What we did is we actually used the warmth that we had and embellished it, made it even better, right? Now next we go down, warm, we use a neutral. With matrix, all of the ends are going to be neither cool nor warm. They're going to be right in the middle, hence the word neutral. Now if I add a neutral to a warm, right? So my underlying pigment is warm, I add a neutral to it, what I'm going to end up with is a warm result. These are really, really important. I think a lot of times we grab toners, we grab that 10V every time, but we don't really know why we're grabbing it, or we grab that 10A and we don't really know why we're grabbing it. So I'm hoping that this will help that out. Then we have a warm result and I add a cool to it. This is where things get a little tricky because sometimes in our minds we think, oh, if I put a warm with a cool, it's gonna give me a cool, right? But if we think about it, all they're really going to do is neutralize each other out. It's in the word neutralize. It's going to just give you a neutral result, right? So it's really, really important to think about that. And then last but not least, if we're really trying to achieve a cool result, this kind of goes back to talking about double pigments. I'm gonna need more than one cool to actually get me over there, right? Here's my warm, I add a cool. Now I'm neutral. If I add another cool, then it actually takes me to the cool side. I hope that makes sense. If not, message me, I'll help you out, right? So if I add a cool on top of there, right? So my warm here, cool, it could be a 10V, 10A, 8A, right? It's gonna give me somewhat of a neutral, but if I come here and I have a warm result and I mix a 10AV or a 10PA, right? Those are my two cools at this point, and it's gonna more than likely give me a better cool result at the end of the day. Now, I hope that's clear for you. I hope that helps a lot. Please like and comment, subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. I would love to keep creating content for you. One last thing I want to talk about, do not forget the at-home maintenance. We cannot do these beautiful high-dollar colors and then send our clients home with the wrong products to take care of them. So it's so important that we as professionals take the time to make sure that we are really, really, and I don't even want to say pushing, that we are educating clients in the proper products that they'll need to take care of what we do. Because what's the point of sending them out with this beautiful hair if they go home and they wash it in swab and it's stripped your toner out within, a couple shampoos, or whoever knows what else they're using, right? So it's just really, really important. With everything that we have in the Total Results collection, there is nothing that is missing from that collection to be able to give clients what they need. So maybe we need to do a product knowledge class. Anyways, I want to thank you so, so much for spending this time with me today here in this space. Again, my name is Eric Matthew. You can feel free at any point to reach out to me onto my Instagram at Hair by Eric Matthew and ask me any questions. I can answer most of them. If you have an emergency and her hair is not really where it's supposed to be on her head in the bowl, maybe contact someone else. With that being said though, I hope that these tips were really great for you today, and I hope that you took something from this, and I cannot wait to see you again. Thank you so much.